Hello, friends. It's me, Colin. I'm editing the episode right now. I just want to let you know that at the beginning of this episode, some of the audio got completely messed up. During the cold open, I sound like a goddamn chipmunk. So I cut that part. Just know that the preamble you're missing was essentially the setup that Safe Seattle had a Facebook post in response to the Seattle is a hate group hashtag created by Brett Hamill. So keep that in mind. Sorry. Thanks.
You see that? No.
Tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, why don't I read it to you because it's so beautiful. You have to hear it verbatim. So this is what they posted. Safe Seattle isn't a hate group, but if we were, we'd be far and away the biggest hate group in the whole damn country. At over 10,000 followers and 270,000 reads so far this week. Damn, that hate's doing big numbers. We'd also be a hate group that includes journalists, stay-at-home parents, working people, mainstream politicians, doctors, police and firefighters, judges, religious folks, and even homeless people. Yes, even homeless people.
Wow.
So yeah,
Normalizing that hate.
That was pretty awesome. I mean,
making it legit.
Just leaning sort of right into it, or like trying to run through the criticism. I'm not totally sure about.
They're just identifying their class
about this. Yeah, about the strategy, but
this is not. I mean, it's not. It's a non-denial denial in a way. He's like,
yeah,
he's not saying, "Here's why we're not a hate group." It's,
right.
Look at all these people.
Yeah, imagine the hate group.
The entire all of middle-class Seattle is represented in this hate group.
It almost reads like a threat. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, just push us there, and we'll just flip that switch if we haven't already. But the tone of that, and just the litany of the fine upstanding members. It triggered something in my brain, so I did a little Googling of my own to see if I could map this phrasing with another group from America's storied history. And so I'd like to read something to you from Smithsonian, and I'll just tell you that the title of this article is "Murder Wasn't Very Pretty." So we're off to a good start. So basically, there's this passage which says, by 1925, the Ku Klux Klan had 250,000 members in Indiana alone, accounting for more than 30% of the state's white male population. At the height of its popularity, the Klan was a mainstream organization whose roster included lawyers, doctors, college professors, ministers, and politicians at every level, most of them middle and upper middle class white Protestants who performed community service. Wow. Does that sound similar? And then this paragraph caps off with this hilarious little quote from the paper of record, the New York Times in 1923. It says, "Out in Indiana, everybody seems to belong." And then they go on to remark that of all the lower 48, Indiana is the least imperiled by any kind of menace.
Well.
Time is a flat circle, I guess.
We've got
what the kids say.
I think if what you're trying to intimate is that Seattle is imperiled by
a menace.
Yeah, maybe several of them.
many menaces. Welcome back to the show. It's Seattle Sucks, the show about hating the city we love. I'm Colin, here with Greg, and we have a guest.
Hey.
Greg, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, my buddy, Walé Ogundipé, the co-chair of Seattle DSA, on the boat with us right now.
Thank you.
Walé, man, thanks for coming.
Hey, I'm glad to rock the boat with y'all.
Wow, we hadn't even thought of that pun.
I know, that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I feel stupid for not having ever said that before.
I just always think about mermaids for some reason. I got mermaids on the brain, I guess.
Wow.
But thank you for coming. This was last minute, so we really appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, last minute, though a long time in coming.
A lot of
we've
prep.
been trying to get
you on the show.
this to work out for a long, long time, and then it just randomly did today, which is great.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really great to be here, and I think that we have a lot of great stuff to talk about. I mean, see what state our city is in terms of all the changes.
It's dying. That's what you're saying. It's dying.
Yes, along with the rest of the earth, it is dying.
Amen.
And if you wanted to know what hell world was going to be like,
yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, well, thanks again for coming. So I guess, obviously, so you're, you're one of the new co-chairs over at SDSA, which is cool. DSA is doing lots of cool stuff in Seattle. There's all kinds of organizing going on, much like...
Save Seattle?
And that's what I'm talking about. That's organizing right there. They've got all those people on. That is organizing.
Yeah.
Much like the KKK. But hopefully with a different kind of focus. Okay, so what I'm really interested in hearing about is you took like this grand tour of West Coast socialism.
Yeah.
Back in November, and you've told me a little bit about it. Yeah, you went to a bunch of cities and hung out with DSA chapters. Tell us about that and about what you learned. And I mean, obviously, like what you've sort of hipped me to a little is there are some parallels, but also some like trajectories to line up here from Seattle to these other cities and back again.
And even before you get into that, I'd be curious as to how you got on this process to begin with at all.
Okay. Yeah. What do you mean by process?
I just mean how the idea struck you, or if this is something folks are doing, or yeah.
So I think one thing was that I really wanted to see the DSA here in, I was going to say in Washington, but yes, Washington, but more importantly in the city of Seattle grow. We have a lot of members, about 1,000 members in Seattle, but we're growing, and we've benefited from the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez bump. We benefited from the Bernie bump earlier than that, and we even benefited from the inauguration of Trump, because everybody was freaking out and was like, okay, like we gotta do something about this.
Yeah, much like the DSA nationally, right? Like,
yeah,
I joined DSA, kind of around that time, mostly just because lots of people were joining the DSA. It was like a secondary thing, like not like it was like, oh, lots of people are joining the DSA. I guess I will. This has been around for a long time, but solidarity, I guess.
I guess
if there's people doing this, then sure, I'll be a part of that.
Yeah. So yeah, like meh level of solidarity. That's that's what we love. That level of engagement.
A totally unproductive and uninvolved member is what I'm trying to say of the DSA. I show up to like events at bars, and that's about it. So, but we can't all be Walés. We can't all be like jet setting around changing the world.
Yeah.
Using my vacation days to go to DSA events.
Oh, it all comes back to selling your labor, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's what it's about. With speaking of labor, if you want to talk about why your job sucks or how your job could be better, come to DSA's Wednesday night workplace organizing meetings. They happen at 7 p.m. In Capitol Hill at right at, I think at you can look it up at seattledsa.org.
We'll put it in some kind of we'll link to it. And,
But the most important thing is tell them why you mad, yo. Tell them why you're mad, why your work sucks, and what you can do about it. Because there is an organizer. There's a tiny organizer homunculus in each of us, and so all we have to do is tap into it with some anger, with some determination, with some discernment, and yeah, we can organize our workplaces.
Because if there's anything we all have in common, it's that working sucks.
Yep. Just like Blink-182 said, work sucks. I know.
Oh god, that's awful. All right, so
yeah, and the work situation for a lot of people is awful.
Yeah, it really is.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I got up. So I was up at 6 a.m. today, fucking driving for Lyft, because again, my absurd, stupid freelance career has now pretty much fully shit the bed and died or something, just because the work has dried up, like any I don't know, like the coal mine being tapped out or something. I was thinking today, actually, I was driving around, I was confronted with this well-known sort of axiom of our culture about that certain group of people that doesn't tip. I'm talking about rich people.
Yeah.
Rich people don't tip.
Yeah.
Good God.
or they tip you like $1 or something and expect you to be really
No,
happy
they never
about
look
that.
at their phone again after getting out of the car, and no one tip. Actually, the truth is, I think we should, say that as a mantra, like rich people don't tip, because that's definitely true. But actually, no one tips except service workers. That's the only people who tip their Lyft driver.
Well,
If I'm literally driving them to their job at a bar, and they're clearly like a bartender or a waiter, they tip, and tip big too.
luckily, most of the new jobs in the last 10 years have been service workers.
Right, so I do a lot of that, but not enough. But nobody else tips their Lyft drivers, and I know you're thinking, Greg.
I guess you've never driven me then.
yeah, I haven't, not yet. And but of course you could say, well, maybe they're just not tipping you, Greg.
Yeah.
But I maintain a 5-star rating. I'll have you know.
Congratulations.
So
that is great news.
I've won capitalism.
I don't know how much into the weeds we really want to go, because I'd like to hear about this trip. But I thought that in the early days of these driving services, there was kind of institutional no tipping. That was
That's
part
Uber.
of the platform.
It was Uber.
That was Uber? Okay.
So then when Lyft, one of their pushes to catch up with Uber was you can tip on our app, meaning
drivers
you
are
can get
human
tips.
beings.
Yeah. That was their different vibe, It was
Damn, that
fist
rocks.
bump your driver. Yeah. There was them way of encouraging drivers to go with them instead of Uber,
Okay.
tipping. Again, it's just really a different structure, but yeah, it turns out nobody really tips. Anyway, that was my work bitching session. Walé, back to what brought you on your trip.
Oh, as a parting remark, there's so much funny business on Lyft. Now that their stock is a publicly traded stock, that they're trying to pump up their stats, and so I have had, once they went public, I've had more of these weird cancellations, more more long waits for people to pick me up, and just weird mapping things. It really sucks, because it's okay, we're going to tweak what we can to make ourselves seem more profitable to our investors, and that's all that matters.
Yep. Well, that's just the market working. So
That's a capitalism, right?
yes.
Yeah.
That's a capitalism indeed.
But yeah, it started, my trip started before I even got on a plane. Ha, I'm a storyteller, aren't I? And so it started with my being involved in the Tax Amazon campaign here in Seattle.
Right.
And the Tax Amazon campaign was a campaign to tax the biggest 3% of businesses.
Yeah. We talked about it extensively on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
But Yeah, so I think everybody... I mean, yeah, we can just review basically. This is the head text we're talking about. The very small, mostly symbolic, tiny amount of money to be raised from massive corporations.
Yeah. And so, like, we wanted to have it so that we could fund affordable housing in Seattle. And Amazon hemmed and hawed and did all that it could to fight it. And we thought we had won when it actually became law and the bill passed. But then Amazon fought even dirtier. They threatened to stop construction. They stopped construction, and so they really cowed some of the building trades, and that it meant that we ended up having a repeal.
Yeah, what, like days later?
Yeah.
They checked with Jeff.
2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
They checked with Jeff, and Jeff was like, nah.
It was the Gladiator. He just was like this from his bulletproof window and then went.
In day one.
Yeah.
From high up in
And
day one, there's a
there's
spyglass. Oh, we were both thinking the same thing. They've got, from the council chambers, a telescope that they can look up into Jeff's office.
And I think we may have already made this joke, but then somebody like burns some kind of, it's like the new Pope. They burn like different colored stuff to let you know.
So
if
they
it's
see
thumbs up or thumbs down.
him thumbs up, thumbs down, like the Emperor.
Yeah.
Then to let all of us know that like white smoke comes out of
Yep. And
when
then,
they've heard
then
from
we
Jeff.
all, like point towards South Lake Union and get down.
Yeah. It's a good metaphor and hopefully not a literal manifestation of what our future will be.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so, yeah, it was really interesting to kind of see, okay, this really sucks. Seattle sucks. And what do we do now? So, like there was more housing organizing that we got involved with. There was some tenant organizing that we got involved with. There's tenant organizing that Seattle DSA is a part of right now, and just putting in that work, because you can do more than just organize your workplace. You can organize the place where you live.
Hell yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Organize this marina.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would rule.
It is definitely possible, and I just imagine that your landlord is like the captain from The Simpsons. He's just like, "Arr,
Yeah, pretty much.
just pay your rent."
There is a salty old dockmaster, for sure, yeah.
That's excellent, and so capitalists come in many shapes and sizes, folks. In all shapes and sizes, they're shitty. And so I just knew that there was some need for some inspiration. I needed some inspiration. I needed some ideas about what we could do.
This was demoralizing.
Yeah.
Like, this loss, this
Defeat snatched from the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
So
We didn't even... we weren't even involved in it, and we felt pretty demoralized at the time.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, how much worse that must have felt.
Yeah. And so, based on that, I wanted to regroup, and in November, I decided that I was going to check out a few different places, and while I checked out these places, see how DSA was faring. And so I went to Colorado, and it was a really awesome experience because their DSA chapter was able to celebrate just huge Democrat victories. But at the same time, it was a Pyrrhic victory because their version of the carbon tax bill also got shot down in November. And so then I went to Southern California and did some organizing with immigration related stuff in LADSA, as well as went to the housing meeting for DSA Long Beach, and I heard about just how Prop 10 had lost. So Prop 10 was this proposition in California to repeal the ban on rent control that covers like most California rentals. It's a repeal of Casa-Hawkins in particular, and it was such a big loss, partly because like there was so much corporate money funneled into fighting this repeal. And you could just see that they were telling stories about how like they would go up to Sacramento and there would be like a sea of people supporting no on Prop 10. And it was just, they were just flabbergasted. And there was just so much misinformation, disinformation about like the benefits of rent control, which is pretty simple a concept. But I went up to Northern California. By the way, the whole time I was in California, it was like covered in smoke because we live in hell world.
Yeah.
And just like we had smoke season in the summer of last year, and we seem to have smoke season in the summer of every year in Seattle now, it was smoke season in California. And there was a huge wildfire happening in the Chico area. And so went into this Blade Runner looking world of smoke in Silicon Valley, and went to like one of their Silicon Valley DSA meetings, found out like what they're doing and in the wake of the loss, and really like the thing to do is to have more grassroots organizing, see what you can do on a municipal level, and like you might not be able to have rent control, but you can have something that can provide some similar benefits. And then I went to San Francisco DSA, and they were really great with grassroots organizing in terms of mutual aid and direct service. So San Francisco DSA bought up a bunch of gas masks and N95 masks, and they ended up giving out more gas masks than the city of San Francisco.
Wow.
And so much so that the city of San Francisco started directing people to San Francisco DSA's office.
That rocks.
So, like, look at San Francisco DSA. Be like them. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And that was an excellent experience, and that's one of the reasons why we've already within Seattle DSA passed a resolution. Well, is it a resolution? We have agreed. We voted to fund buying up of masks for Seattle for when our smoke season inevitably comes this summer, because we live in hell world. And like a lot of research went into it. We spoke with San Francisco DSA, and we just know that this is a public health issue. This is an issue about environmental justice and environmentalism in general, and there are just so many reasons why it intersects with Democratic Socialists of America, especially here in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, if there's another fire season like last year, this last week may be the only week of like good summer weather we have all year.
Yeah, well, I think they're projecting a very, very bad fire season because we're starting to look like we're in a drought already.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some reporting on this week. I think Crosscut maybe had an article, but
Holy shit.
yeah, fire season's starting early this year. So,
God,
yeah.
wow. Well,
Cool.
I guess it's good that we're prepared then. Damn, it's like Moses and Joseph and the granaries and stuff with the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Wow.
7 years of feast, 7 years of famine.
Exactly. Yeah, like I had a Technicolor coat and I had a dream, and then
But see, in the biblical story, when the people come to you for the masks,
yeah,
you sell them to them, and when they need more, you buy them into slavery. You know, that's how it happened in the Bible. You're just going to give them away for free. That's the better version.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the Bible's a really, really, really awful book. That's what that story's about. But
Yes, that was a totally accurate depiction of what happened in the Bible, of course, Greg. God.
and the Prop 10 got shot down.
And so,
Much like here, the head tax months earlier had failed.
however, in Mountain View and in San Francisco, there was a bit of a bright spot. So in Mountain View, the comparable Google tax, which was modeled after our Amazon tax, that passed. And then in San Francisco, because they don't have they're not a one company town in the same way, just like their big business tax passed.
Yeah.
They both were taxes for funding affordable housing.
That's awesome. I mean, it's obviously it can be done, and it's like it's not.
Well,
it's so.
we did it.
It's that's the thing about that story is like the failure of that is just so fucking embarrassing and stupid for everyone involved. I mean, on the council. I mean, just rolling over, and like this was such a no-brainer, such a small tax, but like. They're so freaked in this town. They just they buy the right wing frames immediately. They buy Jeff Bezos to Saul Spady telling them this will drive business out of Seattle. And it's to the extent that's true, it's because they have too much fucking power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to Bellevue because it's what's called a capital strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
going fucking Gulf.
For all intents and purposes, Bellevue in
is
Seattle.
Gulf.
Well, yeah, but Bellevue in Seattle, if you zoom out
economically,
it's the same fucking place, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, this is like stadium financing, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna find some way to say, hey, we're just by being a big company in this town, we're a benefit to you. And so anything that we want, you give to us, motherfucker.
Yeah. It's extortion.
Yep. And such extortionate conditions are unacceptable, and it's amazing and awesome that New York, Queens, was able to keep Amazon from showing up.
Well, that's what I love. I mean, this, we've talked about all this before, but it's our failure here with the head tax, that made national news, and it was that fucking embarrassing and obvious to everyone. Really? You couldn't, and in a state that doesn't have an income tax? Or, I mean, really? You couldn't, really? You
couldn't institute a tax that we've actually had before.
Yeah. And so... Eventually, I don't know, in some way, maybe the tide is turning a little, Seeing Amazon get kicked out of New York is
that ruled.
What a fucking surprise.
Yeah,
though.
that ruled.
I'm so jaded. I mean, we talked about this too. I don't think anyone even, to me, watching it didn't seem like anyone, those boots on the ground, those organizers, those people getting in the streets. I feel like most of them didn't think they were going to win. I thought they were we need to make this statement. We need to make this shitty for them. When they do come, we need to never stop fighting. But then turn around and it's holy shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's hopeful.
Well,
that's
hopeful. I'd be curious, as somebody who is involved in the head tax here, do you have any insight as to why it's stuck in San Francisco and Mountain View?
I think part of it was that it wasn't something that was voted in by the city council. Right. It was something that was established through direct democracy.
I see.
These were direct initiatives.
Yeah. And so because it got done on election day, it lended more legitimacy to it. And there was a situation where because this was a controversial tax, it could have gone to the vote. And because that's what Shama Sawant and like the rest of the head tax camp had wanted if there was some sort of opposition, but then like the rest of the city council got too scared. And like Jenny Durkin has received like $350,000 from like either Jeff Bezos or Amazon. So
Also, she's never lived a day, I think, that wasn't like that she wasn't terrified. I think.
yeah,
I think she lives in fear.
That
just
someone
generally,
that
that's her
someone
whole
she
mindset.
thinks is cool is upset with her.
Yeah.
well,
Or that she's, I don't know, like out of the even a tiny bit out of step with the centrist mainstream, you know. Or whatever, like right-wing frames scare these people, you know. This is what we talk about.
yeah.
So okay, so wait, so all right, so that's Colorado, L.A.,
Bay Area.
Bay Area.
I didn't get to talk about East Bay.
okay,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So East Bay DSA during this
Contra Costa
time.
County.
Didn't get to go to Contra Costa, no. But when it came to East Bay DSA, which I also visited, they had a socialism night school series going on. And that week when there was all that smoke, there was actually their eco-socialism event, and it was jam-packed. It was such great advertising for for DSA.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean,
Which is like
accelerationism is real.
Yeah, it's real. Like you don't want these situations,
No.
Yeah.
but it's good that people can run to
You're using it.
yeah,
You know.
and that we can show that there is an alternative to this, and we can help people get through this by giving people smoke masks. You know, like this is it's all part of the equation. You know,
Well, I think like showing people that there are alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's about showing people what the alternatives are, because everybody knows what. Even I mean, on every political stripe, everyone knows like everything about our society is like bullshit. They sense it in one way or another, and know there must be some other way. So that's just such a wide open door to show people options for that. Anything. People are just looking like, seriously, for fuck's sake, what are the other options here?
Yeah.
And you just start talking about it. Like, that's all. I mean, that is how you account for the uptick in like socialist identification and interest in socialist groups and left-wing candidates and everything. It's just some people started talking about the other options. That's it.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders just started
Yeah.
talking about the other options on a national stage.
yeah,
And that's all it took. Just someone saying the left-wing options. And people are like, oh, that sounds very like a normal thing that a human being would think of as a way to run a society.
yeah. And so back to housing. There have been some advances in housing in terms of Oregon. Oregon recently passed rent control.
Statewide.
Yep, statewide. And so
How does that work there? What is the
There's
the
a-
details of that
I believe it's a 7% cap.
per year?
Yeah, per year.
That's still pretty high.
It
but-
is still pretty high. So ideally, it would be in our case we'd go for like a 2% cap.
Yeah.
So
Or like a 10-year moratorium and then a 2% cap.
yeah,
I mean,
these landlords aren't hurting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, so Oregon passed it. So California, you were saying, much like Washington State, also has it on the books that it's not legal, right?
Right. Well, it's restricted.
Yeah.
So like there are. So if a building is built, I think later than a certain time period, then it can't have rent control.
Right.
So
Right, so all you have to do is tear down the building, basically.
yeah.
Talk to us about the possibility of rent control here in Seattle.
Sure. So, in a personal capacity, just like I'm speaking in a personal capacity here, in a personal capacity, I supported rent control as a measure, as well as economic eviction assistance as a measure, in solidarity with Shama Sawant, who is currently on the Seattle City Council for District 3.
And she's just started promoting some kind of new rent control measure, right?
Correct. And she was saying, I believe, like 2% would be a good cap in terms of increase year over year. And it's not just a campaign to get people talking about rent control, but also to really shame the thoroughly Democrat legislature that we have on a state level, because they should have passed some sort of repeal of the rent control ban yesterday.
Yeah.
And they haven't done that yet. So it's a matter, why haven't they? Like, let's get this going. The time is now. And basically, once the rent control ban is repealed, ideally that would mean that there would be rent control in Seattle.
So the idea then, right, is to pass something in Seattle that puts it on the books in Seattle, even though it's not enforceable because of state law.
Right.
So that the minute, and as a way of generating support for it statewide.
Yeah.
So that the minute that it does pass on the state level,
yeah,
it comes into effect in Seattle.
Exactly.
So Washington State Legislature, the Senate, the House, and the Governor's office are controlled by the Democrats, including a presidential candidate and the congressman when we were growing up in Bothell, Jay Inslee. So why they can't get this shit done, right? Like they can't.
They did just make some housing moves, though, didn't they? They announced greater funding for affordable housing. I can't remember what it increased by. And then they also increased eviction notice. But no,
really,
yeah,
that one I hadn't heard.
This was very recently, like this last couple weeks. But I saw no talk of rent control.
Yeah, that didn't change. And they also, so just this week they passed the new 2-year budget, and one thing that had been on the table that saw a lot of Democrats were talking about was introducing a capital gains tax.
Yeah.
And that just went away. That's just, so another tax in a state where it is supposedly illegal under the Constitution to have an income tax.
God damn it.
Where we can't in the city, we just cannot pass any kind of tax. We cannot tax anyone. We cannot. In the law, the Democrats can't get their shit together to do it. And they can't. And of course, so no surprise that they can't get rent control.
Meanwhile, 3 hours to the north of us in Vancouver, people are renting out places for $1 a month or something absurd like that because they have a vacancy tax.
Yeah.
Because there's so much global investment has gone into Vancouver's real estate. Similarly, it's gone into Seattle's real estate.
Happened there first.
Yeah.
Along with London and then San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then they were sniffing around for more, and they're like, you know what's between Vancouver and San Francisco? And also has a tech industry and is basically a desirable place, Seattle.
Yeah.
Right, so, I mean, that's what it all comes back to, really, the incredible, housing boom. There's all these other factors, like Amazon and all that, but, those are things that influenced the global money to pour in here, because we have a global free market for real estate in America.
Yep.
Unlike almost anywhere in the world.
Yeah, good God.
All American real estate is on a global free market.
Yeah.
And that's no exception here. And so that global free market can pick a place to pump and store, and maybe sometime in the future dump, but they're storing wealth in vast quantities here in Seattle real estate. The most effective way to do that has been building luxury condos.
Yep.
Which, do we know the vacancy rates of these in Seattle right now? Like,
The apartments were at like 25% vacancy last summer, I think it was.
yeah.
But I haven't seen any figures on condominiums.
So yeah, so this happened in Vancouver earlier, right?
Yeah.
And they're ahead of us by like 10 years. But then, way behind their own curve, but ahead of us, they finally enacted some measures to control the flow of capital into real estate and to regulate that. And one of those is what were you saying?
A vacancy tax.
Yeah, so you tax a vacant unit.
Yeah.
So, meaning, if you're not going to rent it out to someone, the city comes and puts a tax on that.
Yeah.
Meaning, it's therefore cheaper for you to save the money on the taxes and rent it at a rate someone will pay.
Yeah.
Which at least is going to bring down the cost of renting on these units. Maybe if in a city like Seattle where luxury units have been overbuilt, it may turn those luxury units into really nice, more affordable apartments that just have luxury apartments at affordable rates that the maintenance won't be as good on probably. But also, if you're saying there are people actually renting for $1 just because it's cheaper than paying because they're still saving on what that means is that the power of capital in the rental market has been broken. That's what you call a buyer's fucking market there.
Yeah.
Okay? Like a renter's market where you can dictate the price, where they're so desperate to get someone in that fucking place that you can tell them to fuck off, but here's $1.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, that's some serious power. That is a massive reversal of economic power. And it sounds good to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's bring capital to its knees.
Fuck yeah. Certainly, like, the actual landlord class.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to reiterate, I live on a boat. I am a homeowner. Proudly, yes, a middle-class American dream lift-driving
You even
floating
have a hat
homeowner.
for it.
Yeah. Oh, here's this is...
Oh, yeah.
This is my captain's hat.
Oh my god, excellent. Oh my god, that's perfect. So, folks, Greg is wearing a captain's hat. That's like a kind of flat cap captain's hat, just giving you that visual.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but like, that's, yes, it's very cool and I like it, but it's also because I'm I can't, how else would I live in this city?
Totally.
Except, like, at a dock. So, that's where we're at,
Yeah, that's the situation of our society, and it's really whack, to put it one way. And on top of that, like we're here on occupied, like Duwamish and Coast Salish land. Like just the whole like concept of real estate is based on that knowledge is patently offensive.
Yeah, yeah, some people own the land that's been sold to them by someone who sold it to someone who sold it to someone else who murdered someone for it.
Yeah.
That's called primitive accumulation, folks.
Yep, that is primitive accumulation. It's fucking gross. And everybody should read An Indigenous Peoples History of the United States, as well as Caliban and the Witch. Just some book recommendations.
Yeah, no, thank you. We like those here. That's good. So, Walé, like, tell us, rent control in Seattle, Sawant is pushing something, there's a plan, like, what's going to happen over the next year to make that happen, or the next 6 months, or whatever, or before the election?
Well, the interesting thing is that there's also economic eviction assistance that she's pushing forth, and that can be brought into law, like, today, tomorrow.
There's no state impediment to that.
Exactly. And the thing about economic eviction assistance is, like, if you're priced out, you get some sort of assistance. And
from where?
From
the landlord?
I believe it's from the landlord, yes.
Yeah.
And so that that is huge. It also is in keeping with something that recently passed in Portland, where I believe that it's if you do not give enough notice for an eviction, or if you just like have like a no cause eviction, you have to pay for the moving cost of that person that you're evicting, and that's brought down evictions significantly. So
if they actually put enforcement mechanisms into like eviction regulations, our eviction rules are not too bad in this city. The problem is no one understands or knows what their rights are.
Right.
Tenants Union, Seattle Tenants Union, is that what they're called?
I believe that there's, you know what, I don't remember the name. It might be Seattle Tenants Union, but there's also like I think B Seattle.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like they have information sessions about how to advocate for yourself as a tenant.
And even if you just go to like Tenants Union website, like they have some like you can just read like a few pages of like, oh shit, like there's all these rules they have to follow, and shit I can trip them up on. And I always say just like, drag it out and make it as painful as possible.
Yeah, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing to do if you're gonna get evicted is to really get evicted, because at that point, you just not pay them for 6 months and then get evicted, rather than just like leave when you're told and then you just save 6 months on rent.
Yeah, I think that's a little. I think that's a little challenging though, because like to have an eviction on your record, it almost guarantees that you're gonna have trouble getting another rental.
Yeah, that is very true. But you know what? If you just move on to a boat, no one's gonna check that. So
damn, that's some galaxy brain shit.
Yeah. So B Seattle has tenant rights boot camps.
Yeah, awesome.
So if you go to seattletenantbootcamps.org, you can see what your tenants' rights are. Find the actual events, and find out what your rights are.
Cool. And like we will just stay tuned for news on this rent control fight and see where that goes, and maybe we'll see something here in Seattle that'll maybe lead to something on the state when all the Washington State Democrats are replaced by I don't know,
Matt Shea clones.
Yeah, or some kind of multiplying androids that would still be better than what we've got now. I don't know.
Fire ants. Just like some fire ants.
Okay, cool. Well, Walé, thank you for finally coming by the boat, getting on the podcast. Super cool to hear about your trip, and all, the fights you got to peek in on last year.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So, okay, wait, where can we find you on the Twitter machine, for example, or anywhere else that you're doing stuff? Obviously, you're doing stuff with DSA, but just you personally, like, what's your Twitter handle again?
It's copacetic, but spelled Kopasetik. That's Kopasetik.
Awesome.
I'm on all sorts of social media, and I'm on OkCupid.
Yeah, that's right. Walé is single, everybody. So
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. Hit him up. Slide into those DMs.
Yeah. Keep those cleats down when you slide, though.
Oh my god.
Okay. Colin? Do we have some
Yeah,
announcement?
yeah. I just reiterate what Greg said. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure. It's always awesome to hear what's going on in Seattle DSA from somebody who is only like Seattle DSA adjacent by proxy. So
For now.
Yeah, for now. Very cool stuff, and definitely appreciate that work. And thanks for coming. We do have one new patron. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, hell yeah.
A good friend of the show. I admittedly maybe guilted him into to subscribing.
Oh, is this Flexor?
It wasn't intentional. So Bjorn Harrelson, thank you so much, aka Flexor on Twitter and Instagram. I bullied him into joining because we mentioned his expedition to Medina couple weeks ago. He was off to see Bill Gates' house on a Lime bike, and it was pretty funny.
Did he have some tomatoes in tow?
He didn't. But he had. I mean, he must have had a GoPro or something. So he was documenting his trip for science, I assume. But
how do you spell his at?
His at is FLEKSOR, and you should definitely check him out.
He's got some. He's tweeting some jokes.
He's very
tweeting
funny.
Some jokes about Seattle, which who's really even trying?
Yeah,
to
he's
do
very
that?
funny. He's also a DJ. His music's pretty cool. So yeah, check him out.
Yeah.
Cool dude.
All right.
And if you want to be like him, you can find us on Patreon. So
Where you can also find our bonus episodes,
Yeah.
our Seattle Suckers report, just for the suckers.
that's how I
who
got
give us
Bjorn,
money.
because I said, hey, we talked about you on this episode behind the paywall, just so you know. And then he knew what that meant.
He had
He knew what that
he
meant.
had to hear his own. He had to pay to hear his own shout out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we paywalled his shout out. That is a strategy.
That was not my intention.
Paywall
I
the
just want to be
shout-outs.
clear.
All right.
Anyway,
cool. We've
yeah.
got a lot more friends on Twitter.
Yeah, we
who,
do.
Are probably going to get a shout out in our next Seattle Suckers report.
We're just gonna read a list of names.
Yeah, and say some nice complimentary thing about them.
Yeah. So if you want to hear what we're gonna say about you, pay up.
You.
All right.
All right. Thanks everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Walé.
Thanks.